let us pick out the things that you would. In Yeshua's name, amen. It is good to be back. Wow. I told Brother Travis, when we go up to High Prairie Acres, the last 2 times we've been there, I've spent more time in bed there than doing anything else. And I think it's the Father telling me, this is a place of sickness, don't come here, kind of thing. It's like I'm starting to dread when we have to do things up there. All right. Hey, praise the Father. I'm getting better. We're going to be in Acts 22. We're going back to Acts 22 today. Excuse me. And man, it's been a while. Has it been a month?
It's been a month, yeah. At least.
Wow.
We're right at the month.
The good news is, though, we all got to watch and listen to Pastor Dal, which we don't, get to do on time. So I sent him an email and I said, finally, because, the time he's doing services, we're involved in getting ready for services, and we don't here on the mountain have good internet that we can do that. I said, finally, I'm in a place where I can watch you and listen to you. And so I got to do that, which was kind of interesting and fun. But here we are. All right, so Acts 22, just to kind of catch us up, because I think we're going to finish Acts 22 today. Paul is at the end of his last journey, missionary journey, and he comes into Jerusalem and he goes to the temple, and people accuse him and they drag him out and they shut the doors of the temple, and this big tumult occurs, and then the Roman garrison, because they want to keep things calm, right? You guys can do what you want to do. You can worship like you want to worship. Let's just keep it on the, on the down low. Just keep everything calm, and you can do what you want to do. But if you start fussing with each other, I don't know the Fletchall's good enough yet to know this, but when I raised my kids, and I only had 3, when they started fussing with each other, I would say, do you want me to solve this problem? Because no one's going to like it if Dad solves the problem, so y'all work it out. So the Roman garrison comes because obviously they need some help solving the problem. They look around, everybody's yelling at Paul, they grab Paul, and they start dragging him to jail. It's like, obviously he's the source of the problem, let's remove him. And then Paul says, where does he say that? Let me see. It's kind of interesting. In 21, Acts 21, verse 37, so towards the end, and as Paul was led into the castle, that's like the garrison, he said unto the chief captain, the head of the guard, hey, can I speak to you? And he said, the captain of the guard said, what? You can speak Greek? Whoa, I thought you were one of these Hebrew Israelite dudes. You can speak Greek? And here's something. Paul spoke good Greek, right? And he goes, aren't you that Egyptian which before these days made an uproar and led out into the wilderness 4,000 men that were murderers? So he thought that Paul was probably this guy who was leading an insurrection against Rome. And so finally he has him caught. So in his mind, that's kind of what he thought when he was arresting him. And Paul said, I am a man which is a Jew of Tarsus, a city in Cilicia. In case you didn't know that, there, you knuckle-dragging soldier. I mean, that's kind of what I kind of feel that he's saying there. A citizen of no mean city. Hey, I'm a citizen of an important city, and I beseech thee, suffer me to speak unto the people. And so the captain of the guard is like, okay, go ahead and talk to the people. And so Paul turns around on the steps, and he starts speaking, and he tells everybody the story, the story of being on the Damascus Road, and that's what kind of started us into Acts chapter 22, and being converted, and going forth, and then just kind of skip ahead in 22, because he's still speaking. And saw him, Yeshua, saying unto me, make haste and get thee quickly, we're in verse 18, get thee quickly out of Jerusalem, for they will not receive your testimony concerning me. So this is Yeshua telling Paul, basically, you are going to the Gentiles. I know you've got this Jew thing down like nobody's business, Paul, a Pharisee, studied at the feet of Gamaliel, but you're going to be going outside because they're not going to listen to you in Jerusalem. And I said, Lord, they know, he's talking about outside and all the little cell churches. And that's an interesting concept too, because we talk about cell churches today. I've heard that term in Christianity, and basically that's a home fellowship. Right? It's like, all right, there's only a few of us in this area that want to get together and worship like this, so we'll meet at your house, right? Or we'll meet at this house. Okay, that sort of gets to it, but not really, because a lot of these cell churches were underground, right? They were hiding. They were hiding from people like Paul coming and arresting them and throwing them in jail and stuff like that. So it was like an underground movement. And they knew, because word of mouth had passed about this guy Paul, who's like the death dealer to us true believers in the way. And he's like, how am I going to go out and talk to them? And not only that, but when Stephen was martyred, I held the clothes of the people. I mean, people know who I am, that I'm a bad guy. And in verse 21, and he, Yeshua, said unto me, depart, for I will send thee far hence unto the Gentiles. Now this is Paul saying this in a speech to all these Jews who are pretty much listening to him down below, until he says this part. Right? This is where his speech ends. This is not necessarily where Paul wanted his speech to end. So just look at that again. Verse 21. And he said, now this is Paul speaking, so he's speaking to a crowd. And he said unto me, depart, for I will send you far hence unto the Gentiles. And they gave him audience unto this word, that the word that he was speaking, and then they lifted up their voices and they said, away with such a fellow from the earth, for it is not fit that he should live. And as they cried out and cast off their clothes, and they threw dust in the air. So basically, Paul's talking, he's giving this speech, people are listening, they're nodding, they're probably whispering to each other, until he says, God, the Messiah, told me to go preach to the Gentiles, the Goyim, the nations. They went nuts. And in typical overreactive fashion, they're ripping their clothes, they're throwing, oy vey, whatever. I can't believe he said that. That's, blah, blah, blah. The crowd that he's speaking to is not all followers of the way. There are followers of the way, Jews who believe Yeshua is Messiah, but there's also other, if you will, and I'm using this term loosely, Jews, Israelites, who have not yet accepted Yeshua as Messiah. But they're listening, and they're like, this is interesting, until he says that this Messiah told him to go to the Gentiles and bring the truth to them. Because you see, the Israelites, the Jews, as you read it in King James, who were there at the time, they had a really huge superiority complex. Now, they're under Roman occupation. They can't do anything that the Romans don't let them do, and they have to do everything the Romans make them do. But the Romans were pretty cool about it. They're like, you keep your stuff together and we'll leave you alone. And so they're kind of underlings, and yet they feel like they're superior to everybody, because why? Because they have the truth of Yahweh, right? So in that sense they are, but it's just kind of a weird place to be. And they thought that you have to be a blood-born, not blood-bought, blood-born Jew to get this truth and to have this truth. And it's special because we are a peculiar people, a people set apart unto him, right? We all read that. Matter of fact, and so they go nuts when he says, we're going to take this message to the unwashed. Let's, because I kind of wanted to start here, but this is as good a time as any to go there. Let's go to Psalm 139. Dun, 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 dun. A Psalm of David. O Yahweh, thou hast searched me and known me. I'm going to say you instead of thou. You know my downsitting and my uprising. You understand my thought afar off. You compass, you surround my path and my lying down, and are acquainted with all my ways. For there is not a word in my tongue, but lo, O Yahweh, thou knowest it all together. You have beset me behind and before, and laid your hand upon me. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me. It is high, I cannot attain unto it. Whither shall I go from your spirit? Or whither shall I flee from thy presence? Which means there's nowhere I can go to get away from your presence. There's nowhere I can go to get away from your spirit. You are omnipresent. If I ascend up unto heaven, you are there. If I make my bed in hell, behold, you are there. If I take the wings of the morning and dwell in the uttermost parts of the sea, even there shall your hand lead me, and your right hand shall hold me. If I say, surely the darkness shall cover me, even the night shall be light about me. Yea, the darkness hides not from you, but the night shines as the day. The darkness and the light are both alike to you. For you have possessed my reins, my being. You have covered me in my mother's womb. I will praise thee, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. And by the way, that's going to be like the title, if we had to have a title of today's sermon, fearfully and wonderfully made. See, the Jews that we're reading about that just went nuts, they knew this. They knew this psalm, and they knew that they were fearfully and wonderfully made. They knew that they were a special people set apart unto Yah, and if we're special, then we don't want you being special too. Because if you get in, then we're a little bit less special because now we're diluted. Right? That was kind of a thought process that was going on here. You have covered, I will praise thee, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. That's verse 14. Marvelous are your works, that my soul knows right well. My substance was not hid from you when I was made in secret and curiously wrought, finely wrought in the lowest parts of the earth. Your eyes did see my substance, yet being unperfect, and in your book all my members were written, which in continuance were fashioned, when as yet there was none of them. How precious also are thy thoughts unto me, O, what does it say in scriptures? El or Elohim? El. O-El. How great is the sum of them? If I should count them, they are more in number than the sand. When I awake, I am still with you. Surely you will slay the wicked, O Eloah. Depart from me, therefore, ye bloody men, for they speak against you wickedly, and your enemies take your name in vain. Do not I hate them, O Yahweh, that hate thee? Oh, there's a good one for today. Hate those who hate Yah. Am I not grieved with those that rise up against you? I hate them with a perfect hatred. I count them my enemies. That is kind of politically incorrect and kind of goes against that whole coexist bumper sticker, doesn't it? I hate those who hate you. They're my enemies. See, right now we're in a time where we have the luxury, or I could twist that around too and make that another word, to kind of go along with our happy selves, and we don't have to make hard choices. It's like, we'll come back to this, but I just had a thought. It's like I've said before that I respect, and don't misunderstand this, I respect the depth of faith of the Taliban. They believe in their God so strongly that they are not restrained by convention. Example, when they blew up those ancient Buddhas on the side of a cliff that was some World Heritage UNESCO site or something, and the whole world was like, oh my, yeah. They said, oh my God, look what they did. They destroyed that art. They're so closed-minded and narrow-minded, and they're not open to other religions. Well, what does the word tell us to do with these idols? Destroy them. Our word tells us to destroy these idols. You know, I guess my depth of faith is not strong enough yet. I don't feel led. Maybe the Father will change that someday. I don't feel led to go to some Catholic church and rip down the crucifix and burn it on the floor yet. But I tell you what, if I was on a jury for somebody who did that and they made the defense that Yahweh told me to do it, I would not convict that person. And I would actually feel a little bit less than in that person's presence because they're actually acting on the depth of their faith. So that's just an aside that just came up. But back to Psalm 139. They speak against you wickedly, and your enemies take your name in vain. Do I not hate them, O Yahweh, that hate thee? Am I not grieved with those that rise up against thee? I hate them with a perfect hatred. I count them my enemies. Search me, O... Is it El or Elohim?
El.
Search me, O El, and know my heart. Try me and know my thoughts, and see if there be any wicked way in me, and lead me in the way of everlasting. Have you ever done that? Have you ever asked the Father to look into your heart and change you? You know, we sing that song sometimes, right? Created me a new heart and
renew a right spirit within me.
Renew a right spirit within me. I mean, see, we sing that, but do we really mean that? It's like, I kind of like the way I am. I'm kind of comfortable in my skin. But really, we're all on the way. We're all walking. We're all trying to be perfected. And to be perfected from where we are now means that we have to change from what we are now. And to change, we have to see our parts that aren't perfect yet and work on them, or let Him work on them. So, all right, so they go crazy when they hear, we're back in Acts 22, verse 22. They go crazy when they hear Paul say that the Messiah told him to go take this message to these great unwashed goyim, the nations. And they lifted up their voices, and they ripped their clothes, and they threw their dust on their hair, and they said, away with this fellow. When they say away with this fellow, and we looked at this before, excuse me, what they're basically saying is, hey, we got to kill this guy. Let me see if I can reach my water. Kill him for the things he's saying. Which again doesn't sound very tolerant, but then again, we can make the case that we're not supposed to be tolerant as a people. So you can kind of understand where they are. Their depth of belief is strong enough that they're like, hey, we need to kill Paul. And so the chief captain, he sees this going on, verse 24, he commanded him to be brought into the castle, and he bade that he should be examined by scourging, and that he might know whereof they cried so against him. Now, Paul has already been beaten. He's been chased. He's been stoned. He's had stripes laid on him. Scourging is something a little bit different. People would die under scourging, and basically what they would do, they had like this pillar with like a little peg sticking out of it, and they'd tie your hands like this so your hands couldn't slide down it, and then your back is all bare, and then they'd hit you with this whip with all these things on it, like they beat Yeshua with, and it could lay open your back like Hugh Glass, with your bones showing and stuff. And basically it was kind of like the old Puritans. They would beat you until you confessed. Right? So that's what they're getting ready to do to this guy. Now there's a problem that they're just about to realize, and that is this: you cannot do this punishment to a Roman citizen without first having a Roman trial and yada yada yada. You can't just grab somebody. But if you're not a Roman, they can do it to you. It's kind of the same thing if you compare and contrast it to the Jews, right? The Jews are like, we're a special people and we have a special way of treating ourselves and everybody else is less than. The Romans are like, we're a special people and we have a special way of doing things and everybody else is less than. So we can scourge these people, but we can't scourge a Roman citizen. And so that's what he orders them to do. All right, we're going to scourge him. We're going to get to the bottom of this and find out why these people keep going crazy over him. Verse 25. And as they bound him with thongs, around that pole, Paul said unto the centurion that stood by, I love how he frames it as a question. Hey, is it lawful for you to scourge a man that is a Roman and uncondemned? Here he is being tied up. Hey, is it cool for you guys to do this to a Roman citizen who hasn't even had a trial yet? And then look what happens. 26, and when the centurion heard that, he went and he told the chief captain, saying, hey, take heed what you're about to do. This man's a Roman. Now, here's an interesting thing. How does he know he's a Roman? Paul just told him he's a Roman. That's a pretty cool thing to say if you're about to get beat half to death. Hey, you can't do this, I'm a Roman. Oh, okay. Okay, fine. I'll go talk to the boss. Hey, we can't do this, he's a Roman. How do you know he's a Roman? Because he said so? Because in that day, being a Roman citizen was of such high thing that if you lied about it, you gonna die badly, right? People did not lie about being a Roman. So if somebody said they're a Roman, chances are pretty darn good they're a Roman, all right? So that's how that went. That's how seriously they took being a Roman. You can't even lie about being a Roman. What's that law we passed? The honor, you can't go walking around with the Medal of Honor. What? Stolen Valor Act on steroids, right? You can't say you're a Roman if you're not a Roman. So when the centurion heard that, he went and he told chief captain saying, hey, blah, blah, this guy's a Roman. Verse 27, and the chief captain came, all right? So he stops what he's doing. He's like, I guess I better go check this out. And he said unto him, hey, tell me, are you a Roman? And Paul said, yep. Dun, dun, dun. See, now what's going through the chief captain's mind, because he's in charge, is rut row. Because you're not even allowed to put in chains or bind a Roman citizen without, a court of law, which none of this has happened. And so here he is, he's arrested Paul, he's bound him. Paul kind of tried to let him know, it's the same guy who he said, you speak Greek? You're not that Egyptian that was out in the desert leading all the assassins? And he's like, no, dude, I come from he said, I'm a Jew. He said, I'm a Jew from a big city and a citizen. I think that went right over his head. I think he's thinking, okay, he's a Jew from outer banks or, outer lands. And so now he's telling him again, and he's like, oh my God, I can't believe I am in so much trouble. When this gets back, I could be the one chained to this pole, getting ready to be scourged. And he says, yes. Now, here's another thing before we get to this next verse. How do you think the chief captain looks? Does he look scuzzy or nice?
Probably looks pretty formal.
He looks nice and formal. He's the head of the Roman garrison, right? So, kind of picture a colonel or a general, and whatever his uniform is a good one. It's good quality and it's clean because he's got 4 of them and somebody's washing the one he wore 2 days ago, right? So he's walking around looking good, and so he's a Roman, right? And I'm representing the power of Rome right here. So he's looking good, Holmes. Here's Paul. What's Paul look like right now?
A little bedraggled.
He's been beat up. He's been cast out. People are throwing rocks at him, throwing punches at him, kicking him. His clothes are probably ripped. He's probably dirty. His hair's probably doing this whoop thing, or it's not nice. And, he's been chained and he's tied to this pole. Paul looks like Dookie, right? And so the Roman is like, here I am in all my finery, and I'm looking at this bedraggled wretch who just told me he's also a Roman. And then check out what he says. Verse 28, and the chief captain answered, with a great sum obtained I this freedom. He's like, hey, dude, look at yourself. I paid a lot of money to be a Roman. Now, Roman citizenship was not for sale. You can't buy Roman citizenship. So what that meant was he paid a big bribe. Whoever he was before, he paid a big bribe to some Roman administrator to become, yea, verily, here's your Roman citizenship papers. And then he went from that state to where he raised himself up to a fairly high state. I mean, in the scheme of things, especially in this locale where he is, where he's the head guy of a garrison. And so he looks good. And what he's saying is, they must be letting anybody be a Roman now. I mean, would you look at you? You look like garbage. And so Paul says, so I paid a lot of money to be this, and the unspoken part is, I had to pay a lot to get here, and look at you, man. I guess they're letting the riffraff in now. And Paul said, yeah, but I was freeborn. Meaning Paul's parents were Romans. And so Paul was born a Roman. Now, how did Paul's parents become Romans? I don't know. Maybe the grandparents were Romans. Another way to become a Roman, if you weren't born a Roman, like Paul was born a Roman, but if you're just like us and Rome comes in, if you do something really good for Rome, they would confer citizenship upon you and say, you're now hereby a citizen of Rome. So then the rest of your descendants are going to be Romans. And Paul's like, dude, you may have had to buy it. Dude, you may have had to buy it, but I was freeborn. All right, so Paul is showing him, despite how I look, I actually have a higher status than you do in the scheme of things. And then straight away they departed from him, which should have examined him, and the chief captain was also afraid. See, because now there's all these dudes standing around. Here comes their boss's boss's boss. They're having this little witty banner. He just insulted this old bedraggled guy tied up. And they're like, yeah, check out how the boss is taking it to him. And then he goes, yeah, I was freeborn. And they're like, oh, I am not going to be here. And they're just like, whoop, I'm out of here. I didn't hear this. I didn't see it. Wasn't involved when the inquest comes and it's like, so you took part in this tying up and getting ready to beat a Roman up. I was gone. I heard about it through the grapevine, but no, I wasn't there. That's what they're doing because they're afraid. So straightway they departed from him, which should have examined him. And the chief captain was also afraid after he knew that he was a Roman because he had bound him. And on the morrow, tomorrow, because they would have known the certainty wherefore he was accused of the Jews, he loosed him from his bands, and he commanded the chief priests and all their council to appear, and he brought Paul down and set him before him. There's some interesting stuff there too. He commands the head of the Israelite church, the chief priests, the Pharisees, the Sadducees, the council, the Sanhedrin. He says, y'all will be here at this meeting. We're going to get to the bottom of this. I'm bringing this guy, Paul, who's a Roman citizen, and we're going to find out what's happening. The Roman is still the head guy. He's responsible for order. If disorder breaks out, if chaos breaks out in his province, what's going to happen?
He's in trouble.
He's in trouble. Chances are he's going to get relieved and they're going to send General Fletch in to take over. It's like, obviously, Fox, you can't handle this. You're now a private. Go muck the latrine. General Fletch is coming to take over. That's what he's worried about. So he's like, we got to get to the bottom of this because this is chaos and that ain't going to happen on watch. You guys will be at this meeting. I think in his mind now, he's kind of flipped over to Paul's side because obviously Paul's a Roman, so he can't be wrong with these guys. And he just wants to get them to agree, let's cut it out. Or, we got to stop this stuff. We got to nip it in the bud. It's gone way too far. I'm potentially in great trouble. The point that I drew from this little bit of scripture today is why we went to Psalm 139. And I just want to read, I think it's verse 14 again. Because you see, Paul was different. Paul was a Jew. He was an intelligent Israelite. He was well schooled. He wasn't just smart. He was well schooled at the feet of Gamaliel. I used to say, he was the Delta Force version of the Pharisees who'd go out and grab these guys. So he was a man of means. But he was also a Roman who did this. So that's weird in and of itself to have a Roman-born Jew who does this. Paul is a unique person. And so when we go here, verse 14 of Psalm 139, I will praise thee, I'll praise thee, O Yahweh, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Marvelous are thy works, and that my soul knows right well. Paul was fearfully and wonderfully made. Paul was unique. Guess what? What am I going to say?
Everyone is.
Everybody is unique. See, a lot of us think sometimes in ourselves, I don't because my ego's too big and it needs to be checked a little bit. But it's like, I'm just nobody. I'm just a normal person. I'm like everybody else. But nobody is. Everybody brings something unique to the table, if you will. Everybody brings something unique to the way. Everybody here is fearfully and wonderfully made. And just like Yahweh wanted to use Paul and Paul's unique attributes that allowed him to be used in the way he was by the Most High, he wants to use ours. He wants to use your unique attributes. You bring something special to the table, and that something special that you bring to the table is not intended by Yah for you to sit all by yourself and just do your own little thing. It is intended to work for the kingdom of the Most High Yah. And so if you need to do some introspection about what do I bring to the table and how does Yah want to use this, you should. And I would suggest prayer, because if we pray to the Father, Father, use me, use my talents, show me the way and send me, that's a powerful prayer. The scary thing is, though, that when we pray to the Father like that, when we say, Father, show me and empower me, He's going to do it. And what He tells you to do, you might not like doing. And now you're kind of on the hook because you asked for it. He showed you. He is Yah, all-powerful, and He says, here's what I want you to do, and it's like, you got to go do it. Paul didn't want to go out and talk to these people he'd been persecuting. Paul had great doubt in his ability to do that. He's like, man, I can't do that. Moses, he didn't want to go talk to the people. He was afraid. He's like, I can't even talk. What are you doing? Fine, I'll send Aaron to do it, but you're still doing it. And he had to go do it. I get accused, if you will, on YouTube by trolls and other people, oh, you're just out there hiding on the mountain. You know, why aren't you out there spreading the word? And I'm like, well, we are spreading the word in our own way. A lot of people are watching it. But I still think that there's more for me to do. I think there's more for us to do. And our thing is to get into our quiet place so that we can hear the still small voice of Yah and see what he has in store for us. Because we're all unique, and he wants to use all of our unique abilities for his greater glory. Let's pray.